2 years into a brutal, region-wide drought, the ancient world is starving. The crops have failed, and the reserves are empty. Jacob and his 11 sons, the founding roster of Israel, are entirely out of options. They are a dying organization on the verge of total collapse and starvation. In a desperate Hail Mary play to survive, the brothers travel to the undisputed superpower of the era. They walk into the shadow of the Egyptian empire to beg for a bailout. But the terrifying Egyptian governor holding the power of life and death over them is actually Joseph. This is the exact same brother they betrayed and sold into slavery decades earlier. The brothers have stepped directly into a ticking time bomb. They assume they are about to face a penalty for their toxic locker room betrayal, completely unaware of the strategic shift Joseph is about to reveal. Joseph makes his first tactical move. He orders every Egyptian official out of the room, completely isolating the tension. Left alone with the men who sold him, the emotional dam breaks. Joseph weeps so loudly that the entire Egyptian front office, Pharaoh's own household, can hear the echoes from outside. Then he reveals his identity. "I am Joseph. Does my father yet live?" The brothers freeze, completely paralyzed by his presence and unable to form a single word. The power imbalance in this room is absolute. Joseph holds the unilateral authority to have his betrayers executed on the spot. What he decides to do next will define the entire legacy of his family. Instead of calling for guards, Joseph calls a timeout. He instructs his terrified brothers not to be grieved or angry with themselves. Joseph radically reinterprets their past, framing his enslavement as a calculated, strategic placement orchestrated by God. Looking ahead, the logistical data drives his strategy. 2 years of famine have passed, leaving a massive 5-year block of zero harvest. Egypt possesses the sole infrastructure capable of surviving a 5-year deficit. They have the centralized storage and grain management required to outlast the drought. Joseph views his exile as the work of an executive scout, sent ahead to preserve their entire dynasty from extinction. To secure that long-term survival, Joseph and Pharaoh authorize a massive joint bailout package to save the family. They designate the land of Goshen for the relocation. Goshen is prime real estate, perfectly suited for the family's extensive herds of livestock. The brothers receive their signing bonuses, starting with a standard issue of fresh woven changes of raiment for the journey. Benjamin, the youngest brother, receives a highly targeted, massive payout: 5 changes of clothes and 300 pieces of silver. The physical move depends on resources from the top. Pharaoh supplies official, state-sponsored wheeled transport to safely move the women, children, and the aging patriarch. Finally, they load 20 donkeys with vast provisions of corn, bread, and meat to sustain them on the long road trip back to Canaan. Joseph offers one last piece of locker room coaching: "See that ye fall not out by the way." He knows internal squabbling and lingering guilt will destroy the precise logistics of their rescue. The brothers make the long trek back to the rocky, starving landscape of Canaan to deliver the scouting report to their father, Jacob. They deliver the statistics. Joseph is alive, and he is the active governor over the entire Egyptian empire. Jacob's initial reaction is pure heartbreak. His heart faints, rejecting the report because the idea of his long-dead son ruling the world seems utterly impossible. Their desperate words fail to convince him. But then the heavy official Egyptian wagons finally roll into his camp. Seeing the tangible hardware of a superpower's bailout revives the dying patriarch's spirit. Jacob makes the final, definitive call. "It is enough. Joseph, my son, is yet alive. I will go and see him before I die." This single chapter executes the survival and relocation of Israel, moving the family's base of operations from the hills of Canaan to the Egyptian delta. True, lasting dynasties require leaders who can forgive past betrayals and reframe personal defeats into master strategic victories.